Do you know, this is a great job. I'm sitting here in bright sunshine. I'm sitting in a beautiful park. It's only about 20 miles from a major city. And I'm sitting in a sensory garden. And it's been designed by this lady here, Judy Hutton. Hello.
Hello.
Now tell us a bit about this. This is Finlaystone Park.
Yes, and this was a bit of rather waste ground, and we felt it was underused, and George's wife decreed we should do something with it, so we collected up lots of nice smelling plants and made this little enclosed garden.
Now George is the head of the Clan MacMillan, and we will speak to him later. I hear he's quite incorrigible.
That's absolutely right.
Now you can hear in the background there's a little fountain there, but you've got rose gardens as well. You've got another fountain. What was the idea of designing? Because there's a lot of work gone into designing this garden.
Well, it just seemed something different that we hadn't got, and it was a nice. When the sun's out, it catches a lot of sun, and it's a night. We felt it would be a peaceful place for people to sit and smell the flowers and listen to the water, and while perhaps their family went off and rushed round the woods, they could have a nice quiet moment or two in this little, what we call the smelly garden. And it really has, I mean, they're not all beautiful scents. There's some quite pungent things, and there's also one or two plants that you don't necessarily smell, but they're nice to feel, you know, like lamb's lug, and I can't think what else at the moment. You know, things that herbs tactile, that you can rub, yeah. and they give off a nice herby smell.
And you have RP yourself, and George has RP.
Yes.
Did you design this before you had any sight problems?
No, we've three of us out of the 5 siblings have had eyesight trouble since we were children, but it has over the years got worse, which is very annoying. And now, you know, in my 70s, recently it's got a lot worse. I still do garden because gardening, a lot of gardening is done by feel. You can pretty well tell what's a weed and what's not by the sort of texture. And if you meet a nettle, you jolly well realise what it is, or thistles and things. But and you can prune without being able to see very well, because you can feel it where the buds are on the stems, and again, smell helps enormously to identify what plant you're working around and that sort of thing.
Well, as much as I would like to sit here with you and just enjoy the sun, I've arranged to meet George, and we're going to have a look at some of the other sites in the park. But this is just one part of Finlaystone Country Estate, and I love trees, and I can see the trees around. So we're going to go now, and I hear there's a tea room somewhere as well. So thank you very much for chatting with me, Judy.
Well, enjoy the rest of your outing.
Now, I've bumped into the man himself, George MacMillan, the head of the Clan MacMillan. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Thank you very much for inviting me out to Finlaystone Country Estate. George, now you were just telling me that this part of the park during the Second World War was all dug over for vegetables.
Yes, that's right. And in fact, we went on doing that for quite a long time after the war ended. But the ground wasn't very good, so in the end we decided just to put it back to grass and beds of various things in them. So that's what it is now. But while we had it grew pretty well most vegetables, particularly beans and things like that.
Looking at this now, then, you've changed the uses here. What are your actual goals for the country estate then? Is it to give people a haven to come to?
Yes, I think that's one thing. We're rather hoping that more older people will come, and we get an awful lot of children coming during the summer, but the schools usually like to have a little outing towards the end of the summer term, and we try to combine that with something educational at the same time.
And I have to say, I mean, I've travelled here, and George, I could get lost in my own house. So, you know, I didn't find it too hard to get here. One train from the city wasn't too bad for me as a journey. So it's reasonably accessible, I have to say. Now, you're going to take me now. George has hijacked me, and he's taking me through. This used to be the rose garden.
This was what we used to call the top rose garden, and it had rather old-fashioned roses in it, which looked a bit like coloured cabbages, really. They were big, heavy things, I remember. Madame Caroline Testhout and names like that. They all had the huge placard on each bed saying what the name of the rose was, which looked rather surprising to me. But they gave up, and now it's phloxes and stilby and things like that, which always make me feel it's summer. The smell of the phlox is quite unique, I think, of all plants. So I always love that when they come out, and they flower for a long time, around about the end of July, August, September, that sort of time.
Do you think that with you having RP and you only have peripheral vision, do you find things like this more important to you now, that sensory gardens, things that you can smell?
Yes, I think I do, really, but it's difficult to tell because I've lived with it most of my life, off and on, and so it has a lot of associations for me, which probably wouldn't have a casual visitor, unless they came really often, of course.
All right, George, where should we go now then?
Well, I think we might go towards the woods, and that'll take us through the walled-in garden on our way. And that's a place where people can sit and enjoy the pleasant shelter from the winds, which are all too frequent here. If you don't get winds, you get midges.
All right, let's lead on. I was going to say lead on Macduff, but that's not right. Can I just stop you, George? Is this the stable block then?
Yes, it is. There must have been about up to 10 hunting horses and about 15 cart horses when it was really going flat out. And then, of course, it was turned into a garage and a few things like that. Now one end of it's the visitor centre, and the other end is two small firms that operate from here. Something you might be interested in is that this building and the surrounding yard were used for an episode of Dr. Finlay's case book. You probably wouldn't recognise it from having seen the film, but they were obviously interested in the outdoor staircases and the cobbled yard, and they spent quite a lot of time painting the windows black, because that's better on TV, apparently.
All right, we'll get to this woods yet. Oh, I'm starting to see some trees, actually. I love that, right? We'll plod on. We've stopped now. We haven't collected any more people so far. We're still just the three of us, and we're standing over Finlaystone Burn. And this is interesting. Tell me about this. This is hydroelectric. This water's used for.
Yes, that's right. We're just facing towards the dam, which is about 150 feet above the generator, and you can actually see the original metal pipe that ran from one to the other. It was a 10-inch, I think, cast iron pipe, put in 1920, and about 1940, during the war, it started leaking and produced beautiful fountains everywhere, especially in frosty weather, and not much electricity. So we went on the grid from 45, and then my wife and I thought it'd be a good idea to restore it, use the same dam, and we put in a plastic pipe, which is just beside us here. It goes under, slightly uphill from the old one, and it makes quite a lot of electricity, really.
So this must cut your running costs then on the estate, Barbara?
Well, it does significantly, and covers our electrical needs during the summertime. But in the winter, obviously, when everyone's got their heating on and needs a lot of power, the Scottish Power electricity just automatically feeds in.
If you haven't got enough, you can tap into the grid?
It just automatically feeds in. When it runs out of hydro, it just automatically feeds in, which is brilliant. Very easy.
Right, shall we move on a little bit?
Yeah.
We are at the woods. And you can tell the difference, actually. Further back there, you can hear the sound of the motorway far away. Everything's it's like an enchanted wood. That's what I think.
There were loads of snowdrops here earlier. As part of we have a snowdrop walk.
Oh, that sounds
February,
nice.
very
Is there another hill, George? Because I don't know if I can make another hill.
It's pretty flat.
It's not too bad. Right, here we go. Right, I have to stop here, George. There's all sorts of things that have been built here in the wood.
Yes, they're mainly the work of a wonderful handyman we had, Billy Miller, who had a great imagination, and he loved making things out of nothing. And what we're looking at now is a wee train with a sort of ancient engine on the front, made out of an old meal barrel, and bits of old greenhouse for cogwheels, and then some logs strung along behind it. And it's amazing, really, how children seem to make something of that. And then behind it, we've got a kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, a kind of pagoda thing where people can picnic with a little slide coming out of it to keep the children happy.
And can you bring guide dogs? You welcome guide dogs?
Very, very much so, yes. We had a couple in this morning who come quite regularly with ours.
I haven't got time to sit and play here.
You can't sit and play.
Something I didn't expect to find here, George, a tram.
Yes, a Glasgow tram of the old style, not the more streamlined ones used. Yeah, I remember going most of my way around Glasgow for a penny in the days of the tram. It's a terrible shame that they've scrapped them, but we've still got this one here. And you can probably hear quite a few children playing on it now.
If they weren't there, I would have probably gone on to playing it myself. Let's head on. Now we're back in the house, indoors, out of the sunshine, George. I have to ask you before I go, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, I know that you're 80 years of age, 80 years young.
Yes, that's right.
And it looks as if this place is just keeps you young.
Well, I think that there may be something in that. I find I don't have to go to gymnasia to bend and stretch too much because I do that in the normal course of my time here.
What would you like people to take away from a visit here to Finlaystone Country Estate?
Well, I think for the elderly anyway, a sense of peace and leisure and maybe a nice cup of tea or something like that. And for the young, I hope they'll have enjoyed playing around on the various bits of equipment we've stashed away in the woods over the years, because there's plenty for them to fool around on, and it doesn't much matter what they do out there.
Well, George, it's been a wonderful visit, and I know there's places tucked away all around the country that are all hidden, and this is one of them as well, which is very near the city. But I have to say, thank you very much for inviting Insight Radio to come outdoors and visit Finlaystone Country Estate.
Well, thank you very much for coming, and I hope perhaps you'll come again sometime.